Hey everybody, happy Tuesday and welcome to another edition of TechStrong TV. I am your host, Charlene O'Hanlon, sitting in for Alan Schimmel, and I am so excited about this episode of TechStrong TV. We have so many great interviews coming up on today's show, starting out with a conversation that Alan has with James Isaacs of Ciara. They talk about a new offering that Ciara has that is an expert services and premium support offering. It's designed to give Ciara customers a lot more options. They have a great conversation about that and really what that means to Ciara's customer base. Then we have an interview that Alan did with Philippe Ensarguel, who I think is I think I pronounced that correctly. He is with Orange Business Services, and he is on with also with Steve George of Weaveworks, and they talked to Alan about a recent funding that Weaveworks just went through that was $36 million, and it's designed to bring GitOps and cloud native to several telecom providers, or actually to market in general, and several telecom providers have actually been a part of this, and Orange Business Services in particular, they have big plans for GitOps and cloud native in their infrastructure plans. So this conversation that Alan has with both of them talks about Weaveworks and their role in helping Orange and what this investment is going to do to help them further that. Up after that, we have another conversation that Alan has with Jonathan Rende of PagerDuty. PagerDuty recently had several announcements from the AWS reInvent 2020 virtual conference that is actually an ongoing conference. They also announced some quarterly earnings and new alliances. So lots of great news coming from PagerDuty. Definitely a conversation that you want to check out between Alan and Jonathan. Then in the something old section for today's TechStrong TV, it's actually a conversation I had with Donovan Brown and Abel Wang. Both of them are from Microsoft. They call themselves the Black Shirt and the Rock Star. They're both highly sought after folks in the DevOps space, great speakers, a great conversation we had. It was really all about the shift from waterfall to DevOps and the role that testing can play. And we had such a great time having that fireside chat. It was from the recent DevOps Experience Virtual Summit that we had, and definitely one of my favorite interviews for the whole year. So please, I encourage you to check out that fireside chat that I had. After the news, I have a great conversation with Curtis Minder of GroupSense, and we have it's an amazing conversation that I had with him regarding whether to negotiate or not negotiate on ransomware, and basically the rise of ransomware negotiators actually as a profession. And it's pretty scary that we are living in a society where the role of ransomware negotiator exists, but more and more insurance companies are actually looking toward using ransomware negotiators to help in their cyber insurance claims that they are processing. So Curtis has some great insight on ransomware negotiation and whether organizations should be considering that if they ever get hit with ransomware. So that's a really, really fascinating conversation that I have. After that, we have a new installment on TechStrong TV. It is called The Lab. It's Brendan O'Leary from GitLab who comes on and talks about the latest and greatest monthly releases and updates coming out of GitLab. This is something we've kind of had Brendan on TechStrong TV quite a number of times to talk about what's happening with GitLab, and we decided, why don't we just make this a regular thing with them? So Brendan is going to be doing this moving forward, I think on a monthly cadence, and he is just, as I said before, giving us the download, if you will, on what's happening as far as product updates and releases happening out of GitLab. So all in all, a great show ahead. Please stick around. We have got lots to share with you, but first we've got this commercial break. Hey, welcome back, everybody. First up, we have an interview between Alan and James Isaacs, I should say, from Ciara. They talk about Ciara's new expert services and premium support offerings and what that means for Ciara's client base. So let's take a look.
This is Digital Anarchist.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for joining us here on another segment of TechStrong TV. My guest this segment is actually a returning guest. He's been with us before, but it's good to see him again and catch up. It's James Isaacs of Ciara. James, I got a little tongue-tied there. James, welcome to TechStrong TV. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me back again.
It's my pleasure. It's always great to see you and catch up. So before we get into new news with Ciara, let's just do a little table setting. You have been on before. I think our audience is somewhat familiar. But for those who aren't, let's give them a quick kind of elevator pitch.
Sure. So happy to do that. So Ciara is a SaaS software provider. We have a platform that assists in the process of automation of testing and embedding quality in the software development process for customer support systems. So like your voice and your IVR, SMS, web chat, things like that. So we help our customers get to the point where they can develop the software, deploy it quickly, and operate it without error.
Fantastic. So some big news, though. You guys are rolling out. Well, I guess we gave away the news with the background title out there, but we're rolling out Ciara Expert Services, right?
Yeah, that's right. We it's just a couple of weeks ago we announced this and are rolling it out. And the impetus behind this is that we've got hundreds of customers, Asia Pacific, Europe, North America, and we've just gathered a lot of experience. And so some of our customers come to us and they'll say, "Hey, Ciara, you guys are you have customers in healthcare, insurance, financial services, et cetera. Tell us what the best practices are. You, Ciara, know kind of more than we do as one single customer. So tell us what those best practices are." And I think the other reason that we've done this is that as we go deeper and deeper into the market, we find some customers who have no experience with automation of testing and putting quality in the software development process. And they're really like, "Hey, we love this platform, but can you teach us in depth, how to use it?"
Absolutely. And, James, I always tell people, who knows the use cases best besides the vendors? I mean, look, in my seat, we serve multiple masters, right? I have to serve my community, their practitioners, their executives at enterprises and mid-level companies. And, and quite frankly, sometimes they don't want to hear from the vendor because they think the vendor's just selling.
Right.
What I try to explain to them is that, yes, there are vendors who sell it. Vendors make money by selling. That's true. But who knows their use cases better? Who knows their customers better than the vendors? So you at an organization, you know your organization's parameters, issues, goals, whatever. When you're sitting where you are, James, you're looking, as you said, at a global audience of hundreds of organizations. And you start seeing patterns. You start seeing common use cases. Best practices start to emerge.
No, it's absolutely right. And so what's interesting is, I would say the customers who are, learning organizations and say, hey, we want to get better, they're humble about it. And so they'll come to us and say, hey, how does somebody do this? We're in manufacturing, let's say, how does somebody do this in banking? Similar kinds of customer support functions. We'd like to learn, we'd like to know. And it's those companies, I think, that are learning organizations are the ones that are going to go, the farthest and be the most successful. So your observation, I think, is correct.
Yep. So give us an idea of the kind of, services you're delivering here.
Yeah, no, happy to. So it all starts out with a simple survey. It's 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes max. And we put the survey out to, pretty broad reach within the organization. We'd like to have an individual contributor person, on the line doing work, answer the survey, as well as the VP running the department. Because what you get are all the puts and takes and the perspectives on, how is quality done, how is testing done, how is software development done. So it starts with that. And then we try to keep this in the beginning. It's kind of a light touch. People do not have a lot of time. So we've got, 2-week, 4-week, and 6-week engagements. And the first one, 2 weeks, an assessment. We come in, a lot of dialogue. We ask questions. We collect artifacts, like, how do you guys do stuff, right now? What systems do you use, et cetera? And it's really kind of a diagnostic, and we try to pinpoint where are they on, the test maturity model, that kind of 1 to 5 kind of stage. Where are they? And then, the 4-week engagement, we go into more detail, and we, at this point, kind of give them the recipe. Look, so we've assessed you. So now here's a recipe, go cook on your own. And then the 6-week engagement, we're more hands-on with them. And at that point, we're doing it, with them. You might think we're doing the recipe with them. It's mentorship. And then if they want to, the highest level of this is true managed services. So that's more like a 12-month kind of engagement, 18-month engagement. You hire somebody full-time that just run your testing and quality program for you. But the reason why we've done these as lighter, 2, 4, 6-week, kind of engagements, people don't have time. They want to see some kind of results, fairly quickly. But that's it in its essence.
Got it. We were talking off camera, just kind of catching up. And James, you made a good observation of the difference between Cyara expert services and sort of the professional services that a lot of software companies used to, and some still do, right, offer to help you get set up, or back in the day, even install servers or what have you. But, and then there's the whole body shop model, right? Where I'm planting people in your location on an open-ended, contract. Right. Let's be clear, let's distinguish what these Cyara expert services are versus those two models.
No, it's a really good question. So, back in the day, when everything was installed on premise, somebody had to, roll a truck and bring servers, install software. There's a lot, to it. Cyara is a cloud service. And so, as with most cloud services, it's relatively easy to install. So what was, kind of the professional services accompaniment that, came with big software installations, back in a, sort of previous era, that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is, and part of the reason we named it expert services was like, we are experts at this. And what we hope to do is have, if anything, a light, fast touch to the organization to kind of lift just, kind of the intelligence and the functioning inside of the customer. So it's not, don't think of it as professional services in the old model, because we don't need a heavy footprint on that. It's like a kind of a light touch and expert services to point our customers' organizations where they should go.
Got it. So you rolled this out a few weeks ago, you said, right?
Right.
How do you see it in 2021? Where does it go? I mean, right? How does it continue to evolve and remain more valuable even?
No, it's a great question. So it's kind of early days, we're learning. And, I think as with most things, as you come into contact with customers, they teach you things about how you should continue to, formulate the product. And some things we've noticed is just getting to common definitions. What is a P0 or a P1 bug, with the customer and lexicon. So there's a lot of just basic blocking and tackling that we're going to be improving. But where we see this going really is putting us, we hope, or we aspire to be really consultants and advisors to our customers. Besides, we think we have a wonderful software platform, but when our customers want it, that we're in an advisory, trusted advisor kind of role. That's where we hope to see it going. And then also, I should say, we have some wonderful partners who have services that are, similar to this. We'd love to be, if anything, kind of, pioneers, pathfinders to create, an ecosystem where some of our partners can deliver this as well.
Absolutely. I guess I got to ask this question is, how are you finding rolling this out with COVID? Obviously, you can't do any on-prem kind of face-to-face stuff. It's all remote and virtual.
It's funny, a reference, McKinsey did a study. This was like July, August. They talked to hundreds of people, Europe, North America, Asia Pacific. And what they found was that, and this is more about selling, a little bit less than about expert services. What they found was that 70 to 80% of the buyers are now comfortable doing business remotely and have a preference for it. 27% of the buyers are comfortable doing deals 500,000 and above with never having met the customer. So I think we've had 10 years of change in 6 months.
Yeah.
So there's been a lot of adaptation. Now, taking just that kind of factoid, information that it's a McKinsey study, what we're finding is that, people want their organizations to learn. They want them to get better. And I think so there's the desires there, the needs there. I think a lot of the basics about, empathy, precision questioning, listening really well, you just got to be even better at it on video because you're not in person. You don't get all of the,
nuance.
Yeah, the nuance and the, kind of the body language cues and all this stuff. So we spend a lot of time, just making sure we're listening, et cetera. It's a great question, but I think the world's adapting. Again, there's an article in the Wall Street Journal this week said that the airlines are expecting a 19 to 36% permanent drop in business travel. And, it's a lot of CFOs out there. They're looking, hey, all this business is getting done without all this travel. So I think we're rapidly adapting, but just to, off of your original question, it is harder. You got to lean in and listen more closely. But it's a really good question.
Yeah. And you're right. I think, look, we've been doing our own planning for next year already. And I mean, we've basically written off travel next year. I don't think we're going to be going to conferences or going to see people in person through early 2022. And then it's going to be slow and steady, right? As people sort of build up confidence, years until you start seeing anything like it was before.
I totally agree.
Yeah. So, and I think companies need to plan for that. I mean, we're investing in new virtual platforms and ways of interaction, that we'll talk more about at Media Ops over this coming year, but it's certainly out there. We're running, near our time limit, James, but I got another kind of area I wanted to kind of reach with you. So look, having the services allows your customers to get more out of your existing product, right? But there's also a feedback loop there and sort of a reverse. where having your customers get more out of your product drives you to make a better product and
Totally.
put more into your product. So let's talk about, like, where do you see that phenomenon? It's not a phenomenon, but where do you see that effect taking the Ciara product line?
That very insightful perception on your part, Alan, because this is like the highest level of dialogue with a customer. So there's the average, kind of thing. Hey, how do I use this? How do I do that? Tell me about this feature, et cetera, kind of basic training. But what you just pinpointed, the other dividend that comes to Ciara and ultimately our customers is that we get into this very high level of dialogue of like, how does your organization, Mr. or Ms. Customer, get to super high potential output? And then how do we bend and evolve the product to fit that? So it's a really good question. So we see it as a positive feedback loop in a very direct way.
Absolutely. And, it'll be interesting. We're sitting here now at December 4th, 5th, whatever the date. I'd love to talk to you maybe in February or March, James. And because I think you're going to have a lot more insight into how this is, it's the butterfly effect to a certain degree, right? How it's going to change the path of where you guys are going.
Yeah.
Interesting
I'd
stuff.
love to come back, give you a report.
Well, don't wait till February. You can come back before that. James, beyond expert services, what else? Anything new, exciting at Ciara you want to share with the audience?
We have some stuff we're going to be announcing after the first of the year, but I'm going to not spill the candy yet. It has to do.
So now you have a reason not to wait till February or March. We'll see you after the first of the year. Fair enough?
Yeah, fair enough. Sounds good.
All right. Hey, James Isaac, CEO at Ciara, announcing Ciara Expert Services available now, and he's gonna be back right after the first of the year to give us even more new stuff coming from Ciara. You put yourself on the hook there, James. Hey, this is Alan Schimmel for TechStrong TV. We're gonna be right back with our next guest in a moment.
SecurityBoulevard.com is the leading resource for news, analysis, and education on challenges facing the cybersecurity industry. SecurityBoulevard.com covers all aspects of cybersecurity, including data security, DevSecOps, cloud security, application security, network security, security threats, and more. SecurityBoulevard.com has the largest selection of security content, featuring breaking news, blog posts, podcasts, and more. Visit www.securityboulevard.com to learn more. SecurityBoulevard.com, home of Security Bloggers Network.
All right, welcome back. We have another interview now featuring Alan. He talks to Philippe Ensarguel of Orange Business Services and Steve George of Weaveworks, and they talk about Weaveworks' most recent round of funding and how it's going to be used to promote GitOps and cloud-native applications and bring those services to market. Got a lot of telecom providers, including Orange Business Services, as part of the investment round. So let's take a listen.
This is Digital Anarchist.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for joining us on another segment here for TechStrong TV. Breaking some big news this morning involving, one of the hot companies in the DevOps, CI/CD, Git space. Let me introduce you first to our guest, and we'll jump right into it. First of all, from Orange Business Services, we have Philippe Ensarguel. And if I mispronounce Philippe, I apologize. But why don't you say it correctly so our audience at least hears it one time?
So my name is Philippe Ensarguel.
I think I did a good job then, man. I'm proud of myself. Joining Philippe and I, thank you. Joining Philippe and I is Steve George. Steve is the COO of Weaveworks. Steve, welcome.
Thanks very much. Much easier name to deal with. Two first names.
Well, it is. It is. One thing in the tech world is there's certainly no lack of a diversity of names. we got to, I take it as a personal challenge to do my best with them. But anyway, of course, Steve, Weaveworks is famous or well known in our, niches as the company really who kind of pioneered the whole GitOps movement, which is really now accelerated. But more than that, right? Cornelia Davis and the team at Weaveworks has been doing a bang-up job for a number of years. And we're here today to talk about an announcement that came out this morning, significant new investment in Weaveworks. Steve, I'm going to let you kind of break the news if it's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks very much. We've been working in the GitOps space for quite a while and helping to work on the management problem of cloud native. And that's seen us working with some quite large enterprises. And so today we're really pleased to be announcing some new investment around C with 36 million. And that's been led by a number of key investors. So AWS, Deutsche Telekom, Ericsson, Orange, and Sono IM. And then that group has come on board as new investors with our existing venture investors in the form of Excel, Google Ventures, and Redline.
That's fantastic. That's quite a lineup too. Congratulations to you and to the whole Weaveworks team, Steve. Before I jump over to Philippe and ask him, I mean, obviously from the names you mentioned, there's a heavy telecom presence in that investor group. Why, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, absolutely. So the general direction of travel, I think, for cloud native and Kubernetes has been, we're seeing it move to become the sort of enterprise application platform. And that's leading to a lot of new complexity in how people want to use Kubernetes, the sort of both from an application perspective, like many clusters being used with enterprises that have, large numbers of applications. Also in terms of the clusters themselves, thousands of clusters deployed in many situations. And we see that in both, the cloud and also on-premise. And so for the telecoms sort of investors, what they're seeing is a future where they need to manage thousands of clusters through a software-defined approach. And GitOps, really gives you these amazing management properties when you want to do that. So, I think Philippe can speak to it more deeply, but I think that's the sort of central narrative about why they're so interested and then have joined in investing in Weaveworks.
Excellent. Philippe, there was the lead in. Tell us.
Okay, so there are a lot of points that will echo what has been said by Steve. Basically, for us, we think that we are clearly at a momentum where technology has never played so much important role from business perspective or worldwide location. And we are really excited around innovation and business agility, opportunities enabled by cloud native GitOps and what a company like Weaveworks can bring to a company like us, but also for every transforming business we may support. And there are a lot of important points raised by Steve that was to deep dive. The first point is that we are absolutely convinced that cloud native for us, it's not an evolution, it's a revolution. It's the depth is broader, and we are basically managing our DNA for the coming 15 years. It's a game changer for telco, for network, as well as for digital. And for a company like Orange, who have assets, I would say, into the end user consumer market, as well as on the B2B market, we have to cover the full spectrum. And because cloud native will be the de facto, I would say, cloud operating system, we have to answer to the infrastructure complexity challenges raised by Steve. It's true for us, but it's true also for all the customer we are supporting on the B2B market.
Agreed. What I find interesting as well is the global profile of not just the investors, but of what's going on in terms of the cloud native GitOps world. You know, there was a time, I'm old, right? I've been in the internet since the internet was commercial. And there was a time where you would look at places on the map and say, okay, well, this place is about 18 months ahead of where this region is. And this region is about a year behind that. And this region, they're 2 or 3 years away from really being able to use some of this stuff. That's out the window. Today, you know, things are really happening. I don't care whether you're in Europe or the US or APAC, Australia, New Zealand, India, the Middle East, EMEA, you know, everyone is at pace, it seems. Everyone is wanting these digital transformations, right? Whether it's B2C or B2B, everyone recognizes that, you know, this transformation needs, as you say, Philippe, it's revolution in terms of the urgency, right? You can't afford to be late to this party. Otherwise,
yeah, I
you
think
may
that's
not
totally, I
be around
think that is
for the
totally
party.
true, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
we see it across different customer sizes as well, or user sizes, and not just like in the past. To echoing your point about geography, the other thing we've seen in the past is that perhaps, you know, technical leading companies have been ahead, or, you know, certain segments have been ahead. But I think with cloud native, what we see is, you know, pretty much across the board, from, you know, very traditional enterprises through to B2C, you know, everybody really sees the importance of that cloud native transformation at this point.
And if Alan, if I may, perhaps just a comment on the last thought about from Steve. There are two remaining information that for us are super important regarding the WeWork investment. Is that basically we are a moment of our story within cloud native where deployment can be the only target. We cannot separate deployment and operation. And it's very interesting to see that we are currently moving from a DevOps world to a GitOps world. And what's the very interesting point with GitOps is that you put at the same level the need to industrialize your deployment as well as your operation. And for company where they are more and more challenged by their market, the need to scale is obliged, I would say, to be covered by the two activities at the same time if we want to scale at the right pace.
I agree with you, Philippe, for sure. I guess I have to ask the question: what role do you think the COVID pandemic and everything? It's been an interesting year. What role do you think that's played in this, you know, hastening the revolution, if you will?
Yeah, I mean, I think we see that. I mean, it's not a business as usual period. And in these times, we get them, you know, from time to time. There have been others like it before, but in these sort of difficult times, it means that people have to find a fundamentally different approach. So there's not as much room for incrementalism, and that can be very, very challenging. But it has accelerated cloud native, and it's accelerated new ways of working and new ways of thinking about the problem. That's not to underplay, you know, the sort of difficult human challenges that we're seeing for whole industries at this point in time. But it also is an opportunity for cloud native to demonstrate its capabilities across the board, because people are working. Even if they are, you know, not using traditional cloud infrastructure, they're now increasingly using a cloud-like approach. So that is continuing to drive that transformation, I would say. Philippe?
Yes, I think that on the COVID-19 side, what we observe is that it has been a super accelerator. And basically what we observe is that resiliency make company take cutting edge decision that they would never taken before. And that's why we need to scale fast, scale safe, scale, I would say, with a lot of consistency and coherency. And that's why an approach like GitOps and a coherent tool set can help companies.
Pandemic forever, right? Let's hope by a year from now, it's in the rearview mirror. Yeah. Vaccines are out and available, and people are not able to get on with their life. Do you think we'll still see this rapid time only, in physics, time only goes one way. You can't run time backwards. Time goes forward. Technology too, right? You don't see technology going backwards very often, never. But it doesn't necessarily have to go as fast. So do you think how do we sustain this pace? Or should we sustain this pace? Is there a point where we should kind of gather in the wagons and take stock of where we are, let best practices evolve? Or do we just keep going forward as fast as we can?
Well, I think what's important for us at Weaveworks around GitOps is that we see it as being an operating model for cloud native. And I think the reason why that's important is because we want to come through on the promise of cloud native. And the promise of cloud native fundamentally is that we can do more through automation, and we can do that reliably. So we want to deliver a better, more productive, more agile, more reliable application development and application operations experience. So there is a tension there to the fact that, people need to develop for want of a better word, the muscle, the capability to be able to do the right things. And we've all been in the industry long enough to know that sometimes the industry overpromises and underdelivers. So I think what's really important for GitOps and important for us as Weaveworks is that, we're putting the maximum energy that we can into making sure we understand the challenges of digital transformation. So if you're just starting down cloud native, then we want GitOps to help you. If you are running many applications, we want GitOps to be able to help you. And if you're running many clusters on a global scale, across multiple different cloud backends, then we want GitOps to be able to help you as well. So I think it's important that we come through on that promise, and it's not just another technology bubble. And so far, I think. I hope that Weaveworks and the cloud native community, I think, has done a really good job on making sure that we keep to that promise. Philippe, what do you think?
Yes, I perfectly agree with you, Steve. And basically, I think that we all remember the pendulum movement. We have the mainframe client server, the cloud computing, and the edge computing. We are, I would say, something between cloud computing and edge computing. We have to manage in a same manner with the same global orchestration tooling from central cloud up to edge node. Node can be in the network, node can be at customer side. And what we absolutely must tackle and manage is the underlying complexity with a high level of coherency and consistency. And one more time, it's why Orange Ventures for Orange has decided to invest it into Weaveworks, because we are absolutely excited by the potential of what can bring Weaveworks on these topics.
Excellent. Philippe, I have a question for you. Of course, Orange is a huge telecom business provider, services provider around the world. Most times when we see companies investing, it's VCs investing, and the investment is to make a profit on their investment, right? I invest $1 to make 10. But in this case, this is more of a strategic investment. What does success look like from Orange point of view with your Weaveworks investment?
It's a very good question, Alan. So basically, we have in front of us challenge in terms of modernization on telco, on network, as well as on digital. And when we are observing the move, the trends, all those space are converging into, I would say, the cloud native space. So for a company like Orange, who have to manage, I would say, infrastructure and cloud within all these versatile environments, we absolutely need to move with an industrial and professional approach. And that's why we truly believe that the tool sets and the methodology that Weaveworks can bring into the table can really also support us. It's true for our own transformation, but it's also super important to never forget that we also support the B2B market of our customer, and I would say worldwide. And all the methodology that can apply for us can basically be used to support the transformation of most of our biggest customer around the world that have to face exactly the same challenges.
Fair enough. Good. Guys, I told you the time goes incredibly quickly. We're way over time, but I wanted to make sure we got that last point in. Steve, again, congratulations to you and all of the Weaveworks team. To really, I mean, beyond the magnitude of the the amount of money, the lineup of investors here is truly impressive, but it's also impressive with what Weaveworks has done, right? I'm a fan, obviously. Philippe, I think you guys made a good investment here, if I say so myself. But we'd love to hear more about what Orange does over the months ahead. Please come back and visit with us.
Okay.
But for now, we're going to call it a wrap. Weaveworks announced $36 million in new investments. Here on TechStrong TV, this is Alan Schimmel. We'll be right back with our next guest.
ContainerJournal.com is the leading online destination for centralized computing-related content. ContainerJournal.com covers all aspects of software containers, from container management, data management for containers, container security, networking for containers, to the entire container ecosystem, Kubernetes, microservices, serverless, and more. ContainerJournal.com has the largest selection of container-related news, featuring breaking news, blog posts, podcasts, and more. Visit www.containerjournal.com to learn more. ContainerJournal.com is operated by MediaOps Inc., the team behind DevOps.com, Digital Anarchist, SecurityBoulevard.com, DevOps Connect, and DevOpsDozen.com.
All right, welcome back again to TechStrong TV. Up next, we have an interview between Alan and Jonathan Rende of PagerDuty, talking about some of the announcements that PagerDuty had at the ongoing AWS reInvent 2020 Virtual Summit, also quarterly results and alliances that PagerDuty has formed with other organizations. So let's give this discussion a listen.
Hey everyone, it's Alan Schimmel. Thanks for joining us on another episode of TechStrong TV. Our guest this episode is a returning guest, my friend Jonathan Rende of PagerDuty. Hey Jonathan, how are you?
Very good, Alan. Great to be here. How are you doing today?
Good. It's good to have you back on, my friend. I think the last time we were on, it was you and Alex Honor from the Rende team. And that was just when I think the Rende acquisition closed. Was that it?
That's right. Yeah, it was. We were probably about a month in, so it was a good time.
How before we jump, we have a lot of PagerDuty news we want to jump into, but let's take care of old business first. Old from a month ago, but that's 2020 for you, right?
Right.
How things going with Rende?
Really good.
The acquisition's closed, but the integration and the go-to-market.
Yeah, the dust has settled, and we've had an opportunity now to really have both organizations start running in the way that we intended in the very beginning, past all the integration initial onboarding type stuff, and it's been great. We've now added 500 integrations overall, because we've added in all the integrations and everything from Rende. We continue, both myself and Alex, continue to talk to prospects across both of our customer bases. And I think the most exciting thing is when we get a chance to speak with them, we really don't have to explain a whole lot. People get it right away. And that's encouraging and gratifying both, because you don't want to have to spend a lot of time explaining, completing, adding machine automation to people orchestration and why that makes sense, and the complete, incident response lifecycle. People are excited about that. So it's really been going well. And culturally, I think the most important thing, Alex and Damon and the team are just super. Love having them as a part of the family.
Very cool. Excellent. And success, look, I'm a big fan of Damon and Alex. I'm a very good friend with Damon. So, more power to them, more power to you guys. Do great things together. Let's pivot from that though, Jonathan. Some new news coming out of PagerDuty, a couple of different items as we, come to the end of the year, start getting ready, gearing up 2021. Share with us some happenings, some news. What's going on?
Well, we've started and kicked off our new quarter in an exciting way, joining a few announcements at AWS at reInvent. And so we have a couple of new integrations and announcements with the team at AWS around some of their new offerings. We're excited to share with everyone.
Sure. Well, let's go.
So I guess the first of which is one of the new observability solutions that AWS has. It's called DevOps Guru. And
yes,
we've long been, as you know, Alan, we've long been integrated with CloudWatch, and a big segment of our partners and customers use CloudWatch working with PagerDuty. And now AWS has really kind of taken the next step with the introduction of DevOps Guru, which is think about it as a full stack observability monitoring solution. And so we were really excited to be one of 4 launch partners that they have, which our relationship continues to build. Jennifer, our CEO, with Andy Jassy and others in the organization. And so we were excited to kind of really complete the incident response lifecycle with AWS for not only organizations that are native only on AWS, but increasingly, in these days, people who are racing to get there and integrating together on-prem and their new systems as they migrate to the cloud. So it's exciting. It's really fun. And it was a great set of announcements we had with them.
Sure. I've read a little bit. I mean, obviously last week was a big week for reInvent news and talking to folks. So the AWS Guru thing does sound really promising and cool, if I say so myself. And it's going to be interesting. I mean, PagerDuty, others, they really kept it to a select group initially, right? Of some really special companies that had, very specific kind of relationships with AWS.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, well, they did. It seems as if really, a lot of folks have gone to AWS over the years to work exclusively in that environment. And for me, when I look at not only DevOps Guru, but also Control Tower and Outpost and some of the other announcements that they've made, they're really looking to extend and work in the worlds in which, their customers, our joint customers, are working in, which isn't just a only AWS world. They're really expanding and integrating into the AWS and non-AWS world in many ways.
Agreed. They are. Well, I think the rest of the world is expanding into the AWS world.
Yeah,
is what it is.
It goes both
cloud.
ways.
Yeah. I mean, it was interesting. I was just earlier today doing an interview with some European telecom providers, and it's amazing what 2020 has wrought in terms of the reach of cloud native, and cloud technologies, right? It's just, if you're doing business today, you really got to have your presence there, your strategy there, your plans are all around that. So it's pretty amazing stuff. You know what, Jonathan, certainly this was a very different reInvent than in years past, right? I mean, it's usually quite the show circus in Vegas, and this year was obviously all virtual. What was, just interested in your take on it before we jump into other things?
Yeah, in the entire reInvent event.
Yeah,
you're referring to, yeah. Well, I think number one, the breadth and reach. We just came off of our summit, our annual event in September as well, and I thought what was interesting was the reach and the number of speakers, and it was reflective also of reInvent, also, as well. Given everything's virtual, of course, and it's, since we're not in physical events, having gone to Vegas now of the last 3 years in a row to reInvent, is very different. There's a lot more content. There's a lot more content that's recorded that you can view when you want, kind of on demand. And so I actually think the reach and the breadth of the events seems greater. The content seems broader in many ways, if that can even be possible. I mean, reInvent is such a massive event, being down on, live on-prem, in Vegas the last couple of years. To see it evolve, it's just really continued in that way. When PagerDuty first started going to reInvent, it was really a developer-centric audience that was there. A lot of our early champions and partners and customers were there. And I think over the last couple of years, not only are those folks continuing to come, but many more in kind of the management ranks are showing up. And I think that was reflective in a lot of the sessions that we participated in. At reInvent this year, it was a mix of technical sessions and business sessions. So it's the format, the content, the speakers, it just continues to expand.
Absolutely. Agreed. Okay, let's pivot off reInvent if we can. Jonathan, it's other news, other happenings at PagerDuty that you can maybe share with the audience.
Yeah, well, we're fresh off of our earnings announcement from last week, and it's kind
the
of
life of a public company.
Yeah, it's so different than the past. This 90-day cadence is something that really keeps you running fast on the habit trail. Importantly, though, even though there's the financial and the commercial side, there's the ongoing work that we have in product and engineering, and a lot of the continuing on with the releases and the next steps post our own September major event, where we just had a whole set of really capabilities within our platform, like the new version of our platform, where we're focusing on service ownership, and lots of, PagerDuty took a big step, and I continue to see that working with a lot of our clients around not just the engaging, the historical alerting folks, to get them engaged when major events, major incidents happen, but it's the root cause, it's the fixing, it's the resolving of that. Rende, as we just mentioned a few minutes ago, is a big part of that. And the resolution, the auto remediation part just continues to be a big part of where we're investing, what we're doing, and frankly, really where our champions, our customers, our partners are taking us.
Agreed. I'm thinking back, I helped a company, I helped put together, we went public, this is the .coms days, right? 2000. And I'll be honest, as you say, that 90-day cadence that you live by, it's hard, man, right? And such decisions flow from it and aren't always best for the business long-term necessarily, but you got to do. You're a slave to the street.
Yeah, it's definitely a balance. it's a balancing act for sure. And, you have a whole different set of constituents who are your bosses, so to speak, all the shareholders. But really, what I see over and over again, Alan, is we have to focus on what got us here. And we have to focus on our core audiences, which, are many in your audience, core developers and IT operations folks that we've known for years. And I think as a head of products, as long as we continue to focus on that, we'll be okay. I think if we start worrying about other audiences, in other directions, sometimes it can be a bit distracting. So it all starts there. We know where our roots come from. We know we're sticking to our knitting in addition to as we evolve, but we're never gonna leave that.
I get it for sure. Then there was some other announcements with partnerships, alliances, and so forth. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, we also announced our first major partnership with TCS, and it's important because as we were just mentioning, PagerDuty continues to evolve and grow. It's one thing that working with our customers, they adopt and use PagerDuty, and we continue to work on what I refer to as product-led growth. Get up and running in a few minutes with the product and be successful integrating it. But as we move into some larger organizations, there are kind of three real big drivers that are driving the business. There's DevOps transformations at scale. There's of course, digital transformation. There's migration to the cloud. Like all of these, what I would say, customer imperatives. When you get into the much larger organizations, the Goldmans of the world and the Salesforces of the world, like at that scale of an organization, it really can't just be a department level activity. And so, working with a partner like TCS really allows us to bring PagerDuty to larger organizations kind of at scale when they're addressing issues that fall, kind of the next step underneath those customer imperatives is customers want to, they want to move quicker. They want to move to a full service ownership model. They want to put their developers and their IT ops folks on the front line. And that's as big a transformation culturally for a lot of these organizations as it is for, just the technology and implementing it with all the new stacks that they're bringing in. So it's important for us to form those kinds of alliances and relationships for the sake of these bigger teams. Absolutely.
Well, it's also, I said earlier about the whole world coming to AWS rather than AWS coming to the world. I think it's also another sign of the maturation and importance of cloud and cloud native and, what's going on with DevOps and everything else, is that companies like PagerDuty, you're a public entity. Yes, you have a certain girth size. But when the whole world is starting to depend on the kinds of things we're doing, you need it, as someone once wrote a book about, it takes a village, right? You need that village. You need that community of vendors who work together, that ecosystem, not just vendors, consultants and service folks and so forth, professionals. So, because it has to work together in the big picture, it's too important. We can't afford to get territorial or my border's here and you take, you know what I mean? It has to work together.
To your point, I find it pretty interesting. There were, some other big announcements, last week as well, Slack with Salesforce and to the point we're talking about here, I really think, it's such a great time to be, in the market working, not only as people migrate to the cloud, but also, kind of in the enterprise, because there are some pretty, we've talked about this before, some pretty seismic shifts that are happening. And when I take a step back and I look at it, there really is, I believe, a move towards best in breed that's happening out there. And people don't want just everything from one vendor as they're making these pretty dramatic, business betting kind of decisions for their organizations and for their customers. And so when you take a look at something like Slack joining forces with Salesforce, to me, it's just another indicator that people are, demanding. Development organizations, IT ops organizations, they're demanding best in breed, and they want those to work together. And that's what's driving, these partnerships. A few years ago, PagerDuty would have never been mentioned with TCS, but I think it's a sign of the times that customers are asking for this. And, for all of those folks who are on the front lines, whether it's, developers or IT ops or even customer service, they want access to those products in their tool chain.
Agreed. Hey, Jonathan, we're coming up on time here. Any other announcements that we haven't touched on?
Well, also at AWS, it was a big set of events. Just to touch on re:Invent, maybe wrap up there one last time. They had over 24 different announcements that they made. And our announcements with them weren't limited to just DevOps Guru. It was also around Control Tower. And that's exciting because it's kind of one of those areas where now for customers of AWS who want to work, again, in the combination of on-prem as well as in the cloud, PagerDuty can help them there as well. So there were other announcements that we'll continue to work on with AWS for the sake and for the value of our common customers, and excited to see where everything continues to move and evolve.
Absolutely, my friend. Hey, come back and visit us again soon, Jonathan. It's nice having you on here on a regular basis.
Likewise, Alan. It's great to see you. Stay well and stay healthy.
You too, man. And to everyone at PagerDuty.
Thank you.
All right. Jonathan Rende from PagerDuty here on TechStrong TV. We'll be right back with another guest in just a moment. Stand by.
CISO Talk, to hear how real-world CISOs are dealing with today's real-world issues. From enabling secure remote workers to accelerating secure cloud adoption, defending against a pandemic of security attacks and beyond, CISO Talk covers the cyber topics you want to learn about. With your hosts, Unisys CISO Matt Newfield and MediaOps CEO Alan Schimmel, featuring a revolving panel of CISO cyber experts. This is where CISOs talk. Join us on digitalanarchist.com and techstrong.tv.
All right, welcome back. For something old this week is a conversation that I had, fireside chat conversation I had at the recent DevOps experience with Donovan Brown and Abel Wang of Microsoft. Great folks, great interview. We talk about DevOps from waterfall to DevOps and encompassing pretty much everything in between. A lot of information in this jam-packed interview. So let's get to it. Hey everybody, welcome to DevOps Experience 2020. I am Charlene O'Hanlon, Managing Editor at MediaOps, the producers of DevOps.com, Container Journal, Security Boulevard, and the Digital Anarchist streaming media platform, in addition to TechStrong TV. We have so many things going on. I'm excited about every single one of them. And I'm super excited to be moderating this fireside chat discussion today with Donovan Brown and Abel Wang, both of Microsoft. And we are going to talk about pretty much anything DevOps related. And I guess the session title is officially Fireside Chat with the Black Shirt and the Rock Star, from Waterfall to DevOps. So Donovan and Abel, thank you so much for joining me today. I am so excited to have this conversation with you guys.
Oh, we're excited to be here. When they reached out, I was like, anything I can do to help. And Abel works for me, so I was like, whoever you want else on my team, you can have them too. So I brought Abel with me.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, I know you guys have done these conversations together before also, so I'm really excited to see how you guys play off each other. So I think this is going to be a really fun event. So just to lay the groundwork, today's conversation is, as I said, it's pretty much all about DevOps. But really, let's face it, we're in 2020, and DevOps is no longer that nice to have that so many organizations were kind of striving for. Today, it is absolutely a must-have, and it's necessary to have the DevOps best practices in place so that organizations can be more competitive. And we all know that today's technology and business landscape demands that companies have a level of competitiveness that just is unprecedented. But we all know that doing DevOps and DevOps best practices are not easy to do. So you've got to have the right culture, you've got to have agile processes, you've got to have the right tools. So that's what we're going to hear from Donovan and Abel today. We're going to talk about what's necessary for organizations to not only just survive, but thrive in this highly competitive business landscape, and how DevOps is a critical enabler for doing that. So, gentlemen, as I said before, thank you so much for joining me today. Why don't we dive right on in? So let's start by kind of talking about how DevOps has changed over the last, I don't know, say 10 years or so. You guys have been around long enough that you've seen a lot of changes in the business landscape and the way organizations are approaching their software delivery and application development. So, what do you, when you think about DevOps, what has changed over the past, 10 years or so?
One of the things that I've noticed that's changed quite a bit is the tooling has gotten so much better. We used to have to string all these things together piecemeal, or write it yourself, or have these scripts that only ran at certain times. That we were trying to get to this automated deployment, but the tooling just wasn't there. And then all of a sudden, I think it was around 2013 when I just saw all this great tooling with InCycle. I had InRelease, and then we had Puppet and Chef and DSC, and like all these toolings are just, it's like just converged on this problem. Like, we see the problem too, let's go around and fix it. And it was easier then to get people to buy in, because first of all, people hate change, and moving from a waterfall world to a manual deployed world to a fully automated deployment using DevOps best practices, there's a lot of change. And so people were resisting it. And the excuse they gave was, we don't have time because it's so hard, right? There's nothing that's going to help us do this. So over the last 10 years, what I've seen is it becomes so easy, and there's wizards that will help guide you through it. You can now just download templates from the internet that have full pipelines built into it. The excuses have gotten harder to come by because the tooling has gotten so much better.
Yeah, the attitude has changed a lot too, right? Because I remember 10 years ago, we needed to convince people DevOps is a thing, and this is really important. You need to do this. I'm really not having that conversation anymore. I'm having a lot of conversations of how do we do DevOps, but I don't really have to tell people how important it is.
That's a really good point too, because we visit a lot of our top customers. And the reason why is because DevOps is such the hot topic right now. It's like, Donovan, we just met with customer XYZ, and they're on their DevOps transformation. Can you come in and talk to them about it? And you're absolutely right. I very rarely have to go in and say, it's important to do. They're just like, please tell us where to start. Like, we have no idea. There's so much inside this landscape with infrastructure as code, continuous integration, the right branching strategy. Are we Agile, Scrum, or XP? Like, how do we do this is the question, not should we do this, which is a really good turning point as well. Because it used to be just like Agile. Like, we had to convince people that Scrum and Agile was the right thing to do and Waterfall was old. And now we're trying to tell you, like, no, you can't be doing this manual deployments. And especially when you're in the cloud and you have all these resources at your fingertips, you're not utilizing them correctly because you're not doing infrastructure as code. You're still manually going into a portal and provisioning an individual VM. Are you kidding me? Like, no, let me show you the better ways of doing this. And again, it's the tooling that has changed, in my opinion, so much that made this a lot easier for us.
Do you think that the fact that so many organizations now are they're endeavoring to either start or accelerate their digital transformation efforts in light of the pandemic and the fact that they have to pivot so very much more quickly, has that accelerated the DevOps conversation as well?
One of the things I think it's done is it's really shined a light on how important it was to already have been doing this. When people say, so Donovan, when should I adopt DevOps? I always say yesterday. Like, you should have done this yesterday. Like, it's not something you do in the future. It's something you should have already done. And those who had already embraced their digital transformation, their DevOps transformations, didn't change a lot of the way that they do business come COVID-19. It was like, yeah, our deployments are automated. Like no one has to be at the office to do anything or have their hands on a server. It's like, no, just commit your code to a repository and we're able to take advantage of that. Those who are very hands-on and very manual are now trying to figure out, how do I live in this new world that doesn't allow me to be connected, to be close to people, to be in the server room where I can pull out a tray and type on a keyboard. It's changed their worlds, I think, a lot more than those who'd already realized that DevOps and the digital transformation was something that we had to be thinking about going forward. So I don't know that it's accelerated it, but it's definitely, again, it's helped us say, this is no longer a debate. Either you do or you lose. Those are your two options. You either implement DevOps or you lose. So how can we help?
Yeah, it's really shone that spotlight right on the problem. And like you were saying, though, you need to be doing this yesterday, because if you're starting from nothing right now, it's not an easy transformation to make, right? And this is something that takes years and years, and there's no done in sight. You're just constantly improving, right? But if you haven't started this transformation, starting now is better than starting tomorrow, right? So do it now. If you haven't done it.
No, I love that. I love that. I remember there was someone, I can't remember who said this, it said DevOps used to be just for unicorns, but no, it's for horses now too. Like you don't have to be the special Netflix. You don't have to be the special company that goes and does these things. And I also get the question, like, so what size team, like is DevOps overkill for a team that's really small? Like I do DevOps on projects where I'm the only developer. Like I use the same DevOps best practices when I'm the only developer on a web app as I do when I'm working on a team. I'm an athlete, and I was always taught that you play how you practice. So I'm not going to do something else when I'm developing on my own that's drastically different than how I'm going to develop when I go and play on a team or I'm a member of a team. So by doing those best practices, it just becomes second nature for me. It's muscle memory. Like, of course we have continuous integration and continuous delivery setup. What do you mean? Like, what do you mean someone's going to go in the portal and provision a reset? No, they're not. Like we're going to do it right.
Donovan, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just thinking, for real, I really would rather help implement DevOps best practices with a really small team versus a massive enterprise.
That's a good point too. It always is easier.
Well, Donovan, you use the athlete analogy. Abel, I'm assuming that you would actually use the muscle memory music analogy, that you've got to have the practice every single day.
Yes.
To be a great musician, and obviously doing DevOps takes a certain mindset, and organizations really have to kind of want to be able to do it to have it be a successful endeavor. But one of the things that I've seen with companies when they're looking to approach DevOps, from the tooling and the culture and just the especially the people perspective, is they kind of get waylaid by this paralysis of analysis, so to speak. There's just so much to internalize that they just kind of step away and say, you know what, maybe we'll visit this tomorrow. But you guys are saying those days are gone. I mean, they can't keep putting this off.
Tomorrow never comes, because there's always another deadline. There's always another feature that drops onto your lap. There's already another event that you have to prepare for. So you have to start carving out time in your schedule every day to go and do these things. And what I tell people is, stop thinking that you have to stop what you're doing now and go do all this research on how to solve every problem you're possibly going to have in your DevOps transformation, and then come back with a document that says, let's go do this. What I encourage people to do instead is look at what your current process is today. And no matter who you are, you have a process. You might not have documented it, but when an email comes with an idea, and that idea goes into a backlog, and that idea gets tested and then pushed manually or otherwise to production, that is your current process. And throughout that process, there's some portion of that where if anything bad's going to happen, it's going to happen right here, because this is where it always happens. Like something falls through the cracks or the test doesn't run. Like that's where I want you to focus. You as an individual, not you as an organization. I want the person who believes in this, who's passionate about this, who wants to champion this idea, to focus on that portion of your pipeline or your process that is the most risky, most dangerous, most painful. And what I want you to do is take 15 minutes out of your lunch, 15 minutes out of your day, and go research that one area. Maybe you don't have continuous integration. Go do some research on what it takes to set up a continuous integration server for your organization. Most of them are free, so you don't have to go ask for permission because you don't need budget, right? Most of them can be implemented without impacting anyone else in your organization. If the four of us or the three of us were on a team together, and We were just committing to a repository, but did not have continuous integration. I, Donovan Brown, could go off and investigate what it takes to stand up a CI server, and neither of you have to know. Even after I fail several times, neither of you know. You still clone your repos, you still push to the repos, your life stays exactly the same. But then eventually, after the week of this, I'm going to get it to work. And all of a sudden, every time you commit, my system's going to start firing up, and it's going to start compiling the code. And it's going to tell me if it's green or if it's red. And then one day, we're all going to come into work. Abel's going to break the build, and you're all going to get, or I'm not going to get the code. You're going to get the code. And
Yay, I'm not getting blamed. Yay.
Exactly. But you're going to get the code on your machine, and it won't compile. Why? Because the build is broken, and you don't know that there's a signal out there that lets you know that it's not good to get this because you've never had continuous integration. But when you come to my desk ready to complain about Able, I'm like, well, I'm still working. You're going to ask me, how are you still working? Didn't you get the latest code? I'm like, no, I have the CI system that told me that the build was broken. What's a CI system? So it's a completely different conversation. I'm not trying to convince you that we should go do this, go give me time. You're going to see the impact, the immediate impact of me having this functionality. I was like, oh, well, give me your email address. I'll have my system email you as well every time the build's broken, so you're never experiencing this again. And all of a sudden, you've made that process better for your entire organization without asking for permission, without having to debate people. I've had people come to me. It's scary because I speak around the world back when we could fly around the world a lot. And I'd always ask this question: how many of you work in an organization that does not have continuous integration? And I was dumbfounded. I never was in a room, no matter how many people were in there, that someone did not raise their hand and say, I'm working in an organization today that does not have continuous integration. And when I asked them why, it's just because they said, I've tried, I couldn't convince anyone. I was like, how much time did you spend trying to convince them? Weeks. It would take you 15 minutes to have done it. So why did you spend a week trying to convince people for something that you could have been done with in 15 minutes, setting up a CI system? So my biggest advice to anyone is when you want to start this transformation, don't go ask for permission. Find the part of your process that hurts the most, go fix that for your entire organization, and watch them come flocking to the rest of those changes.
Now, for the record, I don't break the build
or
write bugs.
That's actually true. I remember that one project you and I worked on together, and I kept thinking it was you. Like, oh, Abel broke the build, and it was me. I was like, okay, that's it was like 4 times in a row. I swore Abel broke the build. It was me every time. So I pick on him, but he is one of the best developers I've ever met.
For the record, I probably would break the build. So there you have it.
I love the point that you made, Donovan, the whole thing of just, you don't have to tackle everything all at once. And in fact, when people tell me that's what they want to do, I'm always just like, whoa, like back up a little bit. I like your attitude, but you don't want to fix everything all at once. It's just too much, right? Find what hurts the most, just do that. Yeah. And one thing that we say all the time, Donovan and I, you have to measure, right? If you measure what your process is from one step to the next step to the next step, you can see what hurts the most and kind of work on that to start chiseling away on how long it does something, right? So measuring is important as well.
I agree. Not only measuring your pipeline, because you might make a change that actually is bad for your process. And if you don't measure before you make the change and then measure again after, you don't know if you made progress or not. You're just assuming that this was a good thing to do. And it's funny because that measure and then measure again after the change not only is applicable to your process, it's applicable to your application that you're developing. Because we just assume as an agile shop that the product backlog is in priority order. We assume that the thing at the top is the most important because that's the product owner's job. Make sure we work on the most important thing. But historically, Abel and I, we both know this. We just assumed they were in the right order. Like we had no data that said that was actually the most important thing. But today you can put telemetry in your software so that when you deploy it, it's actually sending information home saying, hey, 90% of the people who visited our website actually visited this new page and was able to get some functionality. That's really valuable. And we need to do more of that. And you might find other things like that on your product backlog and lift those higher in the product backlog. But the reverse is also true. You might ship something and our telemetry says, nobody is using this. Like this is not even remotely valuable. And we need to stop doing this stuff and find something else for us to go do. Granted, just because I didn't use it doesn't mean it's not valuable. Maybe it's not intuitive. Maybe it was hard to find. Maybe we need to have a toast that says, hey, look at this new thing. But what's nice about the data is we can now go run experiments. We can go see if we can make it more intuitive. We can go and try to draw people's attention to it. And if they still don't use it, the data is telling us that is not important. And you as an organization need to go try other things. So again, the measure part, it's not just your pipeline. It's not just your code. You need to be measuring everything that you do and make sure that the changes that you're making are driving you towards the right goal and not in the wrong direction.
Yeah, that telemetry thing is so freaking important, right? Because we are really bad at guessing what people really want. Like at Microsoft, we thought we were awesome at it. I mean, we would interview our customers, we would bring them in, we were great at it, right? When we started gathering telemetry, we started saying, well, a third of the time, we were awesome. Customers loved our new features. A third of the time, they were kind of like, yeah, whatever. And a third of the time, they were like, this new feature is so bad, change it now or we're going to another product, right? And what was surprising to us was this isn't just specific to Microsoft. If you look across the industry, you pretty much get that 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. Mm-hmm. But if you gather telemetry, like Donovan says, you can now tell which things are working, right? Now you can double down on features like that or avoid the features where you know are not delivering value. So instead of your experiments being 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, you start building upon it and you become more and more successful.
I think it's funny that you said we spoke to our customers. That's just recent because we didn't used to. We used to look into our crystal ball and say, we know what you want and you're going to love it. And then they did it.
And that's how you got Clippy, right?
We know you need this. You're going to love it.
I miss Clippy.
Sorry, I had to throw in Clippy somewhere in that conversation.
I'm going to start a campaign. Bring Clippy back.
Bring back Clippy. Listen, I've gotten a couple of questions from the audience. I want to throw one at you. Sure. The first one here, what is your best argument to people that have been around for 30 plus years that DevOps is a culture and not a group within the IT department, or even worse, a contract?
I would agree with that. It shouldn't be another group that is yet another silo in your organization. I get very nervous whenever I go to a company and say, yeah, Donovan, we're all in DevOps. We built this DevOps team. I'm like, well, what does this team do? Did you just enable one of your Scrum teams to be more ops oriented? It's like, no, they're the DevOps team. They're so I'm like, so now the dev team has to talk to the DevOps team, who then talks to the ops team for them. Well, sort of. I'm like, that's bad. Right? Like, let's just go ahead and admit that's just yet another silo that you created in your organization. Oh, they drive all the best practices, and like, oh, every one of these things is there. Those pipelines are going to some similarities, but they're probably going to be unique depending on what it is that you're deploying. Like, be careful about that. That just makes me nervous. What I want you to do instead is empower your current Scrum teams, right? To be able to own that pipeline. One of the things that we did at Microsoft for the Azure DevOps team is we treated our actual pipeline as a feature of the product, right? Because that's how we're able to ship so fast. So stop thinking about it as something you have to do or something that we do on your off time. No, this is a primary feature of our product. It's on our backlog and how we're going to improve it and make it faster. This is a feature of your product. And when we treated our pipeline like that, it got our devs more involved in our pipeline. It got our ops more involved in our pipeline. We didn't build another team. What we did is we used this DevOps transformation to bring the teams together, not create an excuse for yet building another team and another silo inside of our organization. So it is more than just people. It's more than just processes, more than just products or tools and technology, right? Mm-hmm. It's all three of those things coming together to allow you to continuously deliver value to your end users, which goes back to the measuring that we were just talking about. Is it really value that you're delivering? One of the other things I get a lot about 30 years and like long time stuff is people not wanting to change. It's like, I've been doing the same thing for 30 years. Why am I going to start doing something different now? I think it was Jeffrey Snover who said, success is the biggest deterrent to implementing DevOps. If you've been successful doing waterfall for the last 30, 40 years, why am I going to switch doing it now? And I tell everybody, because your competition is. You don't want to be Blockbuster, right? They actually had an opportunity to buy Netflix. I mean, the story of Blockbuster versus Netflix is it's just like their people didn't get it. Right? If their people got it, if their people could see the future, they would have snapped up Netflix with a bargain and we'd still have Blockbuster today. But their people did not get it. Right? There was no process or tools in the world that were going to convince their people that they did not want to come there every Tuesday when the new releases were out and go grab microwave popcorn in their favorite DVD or video. And they just didn't, their people didn't see it. And one of the ways that I encourage people who don't want to change or organizations is I use a workout analogy. We all know we should be working out. We all know we should be going to the gym and staying more healthy. I'm not, right? But if for me to be more successful, because I don't want to change, I like my routine. But if I hire a personal trainer who's going to hold me accountable and make sure that I do everything in the right form and call me and make sure that I went to the gym today, I'm more likely to be successful. So when I find a company that's really resistant to the change because of seniority or just the history of that organization, I recommend bringing in a personal trainer or basically a person who's going to help you through this digital DevOps, agile transformation, whatever transformation you're on, and guide you through that process. Because when a person like Donovan Brown walks into a room, I don't care how long you've been doing this, the passion that I have for the change I'm encouraging you to do is going to persuade a lot of people who would otherwise have resisted if it were coming from their peers, right? It's something about this, and Abel and I were consultants for a long time, and it was interesting to watch as I'm having a room in a conference room, I'm having a discussion with their leadership, and I'll say something, and half the room is writing down what I'm saying, and one person will have this visceral reaction to what I just said, and they just spoke in their seat, and they're looking around like everyone, like, what are you talking? Why are you writing this down? I've been saying this for years, and you didn't listen to me. But Donovan says the same thing, and you listen to me. And I would look for that person to sink in their seat. And right after the meeting, I would run to that person and say, tell me everything else I need to know about this company. He says, but why are they listening to you? I was like, that's not important. I'm the outside consultant. I'm the expert. They're not going to challenge me, but you know this company better than I do. What else do I need to say to them? And that's what you're going to need as an agile coach, a DevOps coach, a digital transformation coach, to come in and say, hey, I know you've been doing it this way for 30 years, but let me show you, let me convince you that this is a better way. And for some reason, they listen to outsiders when they won't listen to the people inside their organization.
Being an outsider.
Sounds like parenting.
Is that parenting too?
I will not get into that conversation, people. I'll turn it over to you now.
What were you going to say, Abel?
Oh, I was just thinking being an outsider totally helps too, right? Because you're not involved with the politics. You're not involved with the chain of command. You know, when I was a consultant, an outside consultant helping people make this digital transformation or make this DevOps transformation, I could tell the CEO something. I could tell somebody with 30 years seniority something. And if they didn't like it, I could leave and get another contract, right? It's no skin off my back. But if I was within the chain of command, or if I was from that company, are you really going to tell your skip manager that they're doing it wrong? I totally don't blame people for not being able to do that. But that's why it's helpful to bring in somebody like Donovan.
Exactly. And this is a perfect example. Abel is sitting here because I'm his boss. And I said, hey, we should do this. He's not going to tell his boss no. So we totally understand it. Because if my boss says, Donovan, I need you on a plane to go to XYZ, I just start booking my flight, right? It's just, it's hard to say no to your own boss. But it's really easy for me to say no to your boss. So hire me to come in and help you. And even if they like, that guy's crazy, it's going to be rattling in the back of their mind on like, why did he challenge me on that? Like, why are they telling us to do things differently? Even if Abel, like Abel said, they didn't want to hear it and I go somewhere else. We've done our job by forcing that conversation, forcing that train of thought on, maybe we really do need to rethink this. And one of the things I have the power of doing at Microsoft is sharing with all of our customers that your competitors are also our customers. And I've already said this to them. And you should just see how their eyes get big as plates because they realize that, yeah, I don't care what industry you're in, your competitors have already had Donovan and Abel come and talk to them. So don't be the last one to figure this out. Don't be the last one in your industry